Two, one. We're live. Hey guys, it's John. I'm at Montclair State University, and yeah, it is a little bit cold today. In fact, I'm sitting here in all this snow, and you can see the snow here. I literally had to step into it just to find a table to be able to do this at. It's great to be with you. A little bit cold out here. Not as cold as it normally is, so I am grateful for that. If this is your first time joining me, I do want to say thank you and welcome aboard. Really grateful to have you here with me. We're in our fifth year. We've been on the air now 4 years in a row, and this is our fifth year and our 28th day. Yes, January 28th, 2026. If you've been here before, well, welcome back. If this is your first time here, I definitely want to say welcome to you right now. Don't forget to check out believemeachieve.com for more of my amazing, of course, inspiring creations. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and kick this show off. All right, everyone? Oh, and if you're thirsty, feel free to go grab yourself something, whether that's a snack, whether that's water, juice. We are on a university campus, so not really sure. We might get people walking around us. Just deal with that. Today, it's all about answering the call. From just working to doing something that actually matters. This is Series 5, Show 5, and it is episode number 5. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Inspirations for Your Life, the daily motivational show where growth is intentional and purpose is always powerful. And success is aligned, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, engineer, marketing specialist, video producer, podcast host, coach, yes, and a passionate lifelong learner and a graduate student. And great to be here. Sorry, we are going to have some interruptions. I apologize about that, but we are on a campus and not too much I can do about that. I tried to pick an area that's kind of like off the beaten path. So today's episode is all about answering the call. No, not your phone. That inner pull towards something that actually moves us, that matters to us, that aligns with our core values. So many people, ladies and gentlemen, aren't lazy. That's the truth. Or unmotivated. They're just simply uncalled. When you haven't heard your why in a while, even success feels, well, frankly, exhausting. There's a difference, ladies and gentlemen, between a job and a calling. And you usually feel it on Monday morning. A calling doesn't always pay you first. It shapes you first. That's important. That idea you keep returning to, that's not random, guys. That's recruitment. Your frustration may be information. Your side project may be your assignment. And that's okay. Comfort and calling rarely live in the same house. Growth often arrives when it's inconvenient. I know, guys. I said to you that where it's uncomfortable, that's where the growth happens. That's where the success starts to birth. People may not understand your pivot, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you heard something they didn't. Sometimes answering the call doesn't mean quitting everything. It means staying, but differently. Nothing you've done was wasted. Even the detours actually trained you. They may be, well, a season where your new life has started, but the old one hasn't ended yet, and that's okay. Stay steady, everyone. Ask yourself, are you chasing impact or attention? Calling costs excuses. Right now, someone needs what you keep talking yourself out of doing. That's the truth. You're not behind, guys. You're being recruited. This is something that we need to realize. And I think a lot of people out there, they just get stuck. Right now, I've actually got my feet kind of about maybe a half a foot in the snow because I'm sitting at this bench and I'm right here by some pretty cool snow. And it's kind of hard snow. You can kind of see it here. Just kind of take a snowball and just, whoa, can throw it. And the snow is very cold here, actually. It's really, really cold. But just sitting out here is not too bad. It is a pretty nice day. There is quite a bit of snow out here. I know some of you watching this maybe in 90 or 100-degree weather. You're like, what are you talking about? Is it cold? Well, I'm filming this and it's winter. Yeah, it's the middle of winter. It's January 28, 2026. and it's cold, and we're supposed to get into the snowstorm again too. I don't usually like to talk about the weather, but this has been a really interesting year with weather. Anyway, when we think about answering the call, I'm not talking about answering your telephone. I'm talking about answering your call, answering your passion in life. That's what it's about, folks. When you can answer that passion in life, when the phone is ringing, you obviously answer it. When you get a call, okay, it doesn't sound like a phone ringing, okay? Not even a horn. It's sometimes subtle in your gut. Um, you get this, or in your brain, you get this inclining or thought that you should do something, and then you decide to pursue that. And when you pursue that, you're first like, oh my gosh, this didn't really work out so well. Why did I ever do this? Well, I think you did it because you wanted to see if you could do it. And so the call of life is something a lot of people just miss. They're too busy. They're on their phone. They're on the radio. They're just not in tune with the world. They're in tune with themselves. And I think that's a problem for a lot of people that are trying to build a better version of themselves. They're so wrapped up in who they are that they don't take time to think about what's going on in the world. The fact of, whether it's snowing, whether it's raining, whether the sun's out or not. And so when I say to you, answer the call, again, I'm not talking about your cell phone. I'm talking about your call in life, your call to respond to your mission, your call to respond to your passion. I'll say this to you guys right now, it's important. When you do what you like for a living, you'll never work a day in your life. Okay. That's the key. But so many people I talk to don't like what they do. They show up at a job and they keep doing this, right? Oh my gosh. How many more minutes is it? How many more minutes is it? When is this over? When is this over? When is this over? You get my point, right? And so that would never happen if somebody actually chose something that they believed in. This is why I love being a serial entrepreneur, because you do what you want to do, even though you can answer to clients and stuff like that, but you're your own boss pretty much. And I think a lot of people out there get scared with the concept of being their own boss. Maybe they don't think they have the discipline. Maybe they don't think they have all the skills, but nobody ever did when they got started. When I became a serial entrepreneur or even an entrepreneur, it was daunting, right? There were a lot of lonely nights when people were doing their things, and I had to basically sacrifice time, effort, and other things. And I don't think that was a bad thing, but sometimes people don't want to put up that sacrifice. I've talked about long term gratification and I've talked about short term gratification. Those that go for the short term gratification, the cookies, the chocolate cake, you know, eating all that stuff and then being 500 pounds. And those that take short term gratification understand that we can have a little bit. And actually, the long term gratification is that, yeah, we're healthier, that we feel actually better. And I think those are very, very important things to think about. I know a lot of you out there today are saying to me, John, answering the call. I mean, how do I answer a call? Well, I think the best way to answer a call is to listen to your intuition, to listen to your mind. And when you get an idea, well, check it out. Maybe your call is to be a writer. I started writing a book, as you know. Maybe your call is to be a teacher, a professor. Maybe your call is to volunteer. Maybe your call is to work in a certain industry. So if you have those skills, try to get in that industry. If you don't, then maybe that's a good time to go back to school, college, etc. And when you do this, you're going to find that it's going to be hard. You're going to think that, I can't do this because nothing is working the way I expect it to. I'm not going to tell you it's going to be easy because it's going to be darn hard. All right. But that sacrifice that you put through and everything you do day in, day out. I mean, look at me here. I'm in the snow, right? And I'm shooting the show here in the snow because, I like to shoot outdoors. The cold isn't stopping me. And technology and laptops and cameras can drop pretty low. So very grateful for all that. But when we think about answering a call, think about your heart. Think about what it means to you. Think about how that affects your daily life. A wise person once told me, actually through video, Neville Goddard, we need to live the feeling of the wish fulfilled. We need to imagine the life that we want before it has shown up on the outer world. We have to envision it, we have to think it, we have to see it, we have to feel it, smell it, hear it. And when that reality becomes so real to us that we can't believe it anymore, that's when it starts to manifest in our life. So answering a call might be something as simple as, I like to act. And maybe there's this theatrical group that you want to get involved with to do some acting. Or maybe you want to take up a sport. So a call doesn't necessarily have to mean a profession, like a job. A call doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do something all the time. A call just means that you need to check something out and you need to explore it. Your call might be to, I don't know, learn how to bake. Your call might be something like to learn how to be a mechanic. I mean, I'm just throwing these out to you. And they may not be things that are going to be your profession, but it might be a calling. And that calling might actually connect you with people that are meant to be in your life. I know that sounds crazy, but it is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're wondering where I am, so I'm actually outside the beautiful Montclair State University. I'm actually right here on one of the patios. It's actually right outside of the student center. And normally this area is pretty easy to access. They did shovel the walkway here, but all the tables, and I picked tables that actually are they're flat and they're not round. All the round tables still have snow on them, but all these let's say square tables, well, they have no snow and they're actually dry, and the seats are pretty dry. But unfortunately, getting to these tables, I literally had to go through at least a foot and a half of snow or more because that's how I had to get here. And the snow is deep. And, then I put my feet above the snow so they could rest because if you keep your feet in the snow so long, they get cold. And when they get cold, well, it's not fun. Now, if you notice, I don't have my gloves on today, but there are days out here that my hands would be blue if they were out this long, right? And you saw me. I had my gloves on, took my gloves off. So, answering a call, let's talk more about that. Um, when we think about answering a call of life, right? Your call maybe to be a parent, your call maybe to get married, your call maybe to enter the religious life, your call maybe, like I said, so many different things. It's different for different people. And when we start to realize that the call we get is just for us, and sometimes that phone, okay, and I'm saying the proverbial phone, it doesn't ring again. It's like opportunity knocks once, but it doesn't knock again. It's not because it can't, it's just because it doesn't. Opportunity often says, if it knocks once, it's usually not going to knock again because you were meant to answer that door, to answer that call. Let's talk about this again. A couple things in my life when I answered the call on. So one thing, answering the call to be a scout, and answering the call to become an Eagle Scout, answering the call just recently to become an author, answering the call to do professional voiceovers, answering the call to be a podcast host and coach, answering the call to go back to school and be a graduate student and fulfill my master's and PhD. These are all different types of calls. Another call in my life that I answered was the call to be a responder and get my FCCC license. Right. Another call was becoming a business owner, and then becoming an entrepreneur, and then becoming a serial entrepreneur. Another call of mine was deciding to get certified in Reiki, and now I'm a Reiki level 2 master. Another call of mine, when I think about it, is thinking about how I can give, but in a very quiet and way that no one even knows I'm doing it. I think that's when it matters most. Another call that I know that I've been put toward is in my own church. Being grateful to Be a lector. I love lecturing in our church. Another call recently, being called to be a Eucharistic minister. Very grateful for that as well. And so those were calls. Um, I got this nudge. I heard about it, and something in my heart said, "You know what, John? You should do that. That's a calling." And not hard things, but these are things that matter. These are things that make a difference in life. I think a lot of people, they get stuck in their own shell, and then they decide they don't want to do anything. And then they complain that they're not any further than they were. And I have to say why, you know what it is? It's because they didn't answer the call. Um, maybe the calling was for you to get in shape, but you didn't. Maybe your call was to become more peaceful. Maybe your call was to be a better listener. It doesn't have to be anything formal or anything with a big title. A call just means something that you have been chosen to do or be a part of. And I think going back to the telephone for a moment, right? When the phone answers, I remember the very first days, God rest my grandfather's soul on my dad's side when he was alive, and the phone would ring. And this was before the days of caller ID, right? Incoming call line ID. And then they had not just the ID, then they had the incoming caller line ID with name and number. I remember those days, and I remember before we had caller ID and name and number caller ID, I remember the phone would ring, right? And we would run like you know what to answer the phone. And finally, my grandfather comes over and he's like, "What are you doing?" So I'm running for the phone. He's like, "Let the phone ring once or twice. They'll wait. If they don't, then they'll call back." I was like, "Well, Grandpa, the phone rings. If I don't get it, well, then I guess they'll have to call back if they want you. You don't need to answer it on the first ring." And then when caller ID came out from Bell Labs a long time ago, I actually did my senior project on that in college. I remember caller ID being out, and I remember that you could not answer the phone until the first ring fully went through and completed. Because if you didn't, you wouldn't get the caller ID. The caller ID actually got sent between the first and second ring, not instantly, between the first and second ring. Why? Because it made contact with the phone. Once the phone was contact, they just passed the data right off that ring. So, I think when we start to understand these things, it can make our lives better. And so from that moment on, I stopped diving for the phone. I remember one night in the phone's room, my dad said, "You better get the phone." I said, "Grandpa said, we don't have to dive on the first ring. Give it a few minutes." But my dad was still so apprehensive. He has to get on the first ring. And I stopped rushing for the phone. If I don't get in the first ring, I'll get on the second. I'll get on third. I won't wait to the fourth, but I won't rush to get the phone. And I think that's a difference. So answering the call means that we're doing it with pure intention. We're doing it because we want to do it, not because we have to do it. Maybe somebody asked us, but answering the call comes from our own free will, comes from our desire in life. So, what other calls can you answer? Maybe you're going to be a football quarterback. Maybe you just want to play football. Maybe you want to play baseball or any other sport. And so, even people that were maybe, let's say, known athletes, right? They answered the call in high school or some even in grammar school to become somebody that's going to be dedicating their lives to train for the National Olympics. That's a call, right? A call to be in the Olympics. It's also a big sacrifice, but it is a call for us to do something. And I think a lot of times in life, we're sitting here waiting, right? And calls are coming in, but it's like we have ourselves on do not disturb, and we can't seem to, I don't know, connect with any of these calls, right? right now I'm hearing chime bells outside. I'm not sure if you can hear that. And it's chiming because we're just hitting 4 o'clock. But calls are lots of things. So when we think about calls, there was calls for the church. That's why bells originally were ringing with churches, so that when the bells went off, it was your calling to start going to mass. Our church still does this right before mass. They will play the bells, and that's kind of like your final warning. The church is going to start soon. It's like your last minute call. But what they did in the small towns is they played these bells, so then you could actually, oh wow, I better get to church. Like, it was usually done like 10 minutes before. Now they do it a few minutes before, but it's usually to make sure you're in the parking lot and that you're already there by that time. So, what other kind of calls do we have? Well, we have calls like 911, right? The call for emergency help. The call that, when we dial 911, somebody's going to actually come out and help us. We have another kind of call. We have a call that would happen. Maybe somebody has a call, they call it ship to shore on a boat. But 911 is a very popular call that a lot of people don't realize. When you dial 911 today, there's a lot that happens behind the scenes. Your call gets routed usually to a center. It's not even usually in your town. And then they'll route that call to the EMS. And so when we think about calls, you don't think about the way they used to be done. Many years ago, it didn't happen like that. There was no 911. You called the police department, they set off bells or sirens in the town, and that's how the call worked. And the volunteers came, but that's not how it works today. Another popular kind of call, we've got duck calls, right? So there are lots of calls, and a lot of these calls are human in nature. Um, we've got calls that we hear all the time. Sometimes it could be as simple as a call for help, right? Think about Code Adam. I won't get into that but it was all about this kid and the parents basically that put this program together so that whenever a child gets lost in a department store or whatnot, they immediately follow the Code Adam procedure. Then they lock all the doors down. They do a whole scanning of the area, and then you know what happens? They hopefully find the person, but they lock the doors immediately so that no one can get in or get out until they have found that person. And once they've gone through the entire place and they have not found that person, then they might have skipped out. But usually, if the person does Code Adam correctly, they have locked those doors like before anybody has a chance to run or get out. So that's a very unique kind of call. What other kind of calls do we have in the world? Oh, there are lots of calls. We have bird calls, right? We talked about the emergency calls before. Um, all animals have different types of calls. Sometimes there's the whistle call, right? People whistle like, hey, get your attention. There's the calls from TV. We have the call signal and signs, like where they say they're broadcasting names and where they're serving, like, this is channel XY da 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 serving da 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 the such and such area, right? That's a call. We have a call in our speech. We have a call to order. When there's a meeting, we have a call. And we answer those calls, but we don't think about them as calls. When we have an opportunity and a call comes to us, do we answer? Or do we let the phone ring? Or do we put ourselves on do not disturb? The reason we don't answer calls is maybe we're scared and afraid. Maybe we know it's going to be different, and we don't know if we have what it's going to take to handle that situation. That's very, very viable. So calls come to us from medical. They come to us from animals. They come to us from 911. They come to us in meetings. There's calls in courtrooms, right? What about a call for a motion? Or when the judge says, please, when the bail says, please rise, right? There's a call. And I think these calls, there's also a call when, we salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States, that one, right? Or if you're an Eagle Scout like myself or a Boy Scout and you're in uniform, then you will do the salute, right? You have the one like this, and you have the salute like this. So I think these are interesting things that I think as you're probably listening or watching this, you might say, John, I don't know if I've been called. Well, maybe the best thing to do is to just be silent and to figure out, you know, what is going on. Silence those chattering monkeys in your head, because when those that noise, you're not going to be able to tell whether this is a call or whether this is noise. There's so much noise in our world. And because of that noise, we miss the call, right? Suppose the phone was ringing and there was a lot of loud music playing. Would you hear the phone? Probably not. That's why a lot of times, I know, like when I was at college as a freshman, I had this light. It's pretty cool. The light, I would turn the light on when I go to bed. It was basically a strobe. And so when the phone would ring early in the morning, it wouldn't ring, it would strobe. So it wouldn't wake up my roommate. And he slept like a light. So the sound would wake him up, but the strobe wouldn't. So I thought that was a very interesting thing. That was a call. That was a certain type of call. We have calls with the police department, right? How about even with CBs, breaker, 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 19. I have a call when I use my FCC radio ID. We have a call when we pick up our CB radio and we say, this is Red Baron. Give me your 1036. What time is it? Or give me your 1020. What's your location? These are different kinds of calls, and we are trained to respond to those calls. I hope this gave you some insight about calls and how they arrive and how, when they arrive, you need to answer them. But sometimes we need to be very quiet, because if we don't, we'll miss that there was even a call, and that call may never come again. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been, yes, the Inspirations for Your Life show, and I am John C. Morley, and I am reminding you that your calling doesn't need permission, applause, or perfect timing. It just needs a yes. So, when you get that opportunity, when you get that sense, say yes. You can listen now or rewatch this by going to believemeachieve.com and catch more of my other inspiring creations. Have yourself a great one, everyone. And remember, guys, answer that call when you get it.